What I find most interesting in the case of canonical, monastic, and so on schools is what I call the totalization of knowledge in the hands of very few people. The Middle Ages are a period where encyclopedic knowledge is possible. Now, most classical literature has disappeared. They have only remnants. What is left of Greek philosophy is some Plato, only some Plato. And people were struggling to do their best with the very few remnants they had of classical culture. No matter whether this classical culture was classical pagan or classical Christian. After all, to give two names, was Gilbert of Poitiers a philosopher or a theologian? Was Scott Eriugena a philosopher or a theologian? Anybody knows. One could, of course, and stupidly, take the Divisione Naturae of Eriugena and say, well, on the one side he speaks on the uncreated nature of God. And the uncreated is something philosophers are allowed to deal with. On the other hand, he speaks of created natures, and creation is property of Christianity, and therefore he's acting first as a philosopher, then as a theologian. The man Eriugena was probably argued that he was a single human being. And discusses, if you like, for instance, it's quite important noticing that encyclopedism is dead, and we can't do anything for it. But it took us a long time to die. So my example, which is anachronistic, but when you admit that something is anachronistic, is no sin. My example is the debate between Galileo and Bellarmine. The popular version of it is that Bellarmine was an ignorance, unable to understand modern astronomy at that. It's wrong. To know all the astronomy available in the 16th century, one needed probably one semester course in astronomy, and that's all. And Bellarmine was as capable in astronomy than Galileo. The difference was that Bellarmine stuck to conventional science and could not understand revolutionary science. The astonishing thing being that revolutionary science was proposed by a man who was a founder member of the Pontifical Academy of Science and who, as a matter of fact, knew some theology. But anyway, till Bellarmine and Galileo, one may know anything. The two last universal scholars were Blaise Pascal, the 17th century, and Leibniz. After Leibniz, no universal scholar. After Leibniz, only specialists. And if you want to know which the difference between Leibniz and, for instance, Hegel is, have a look at what Hegel says about nature in his philosophy of nature. He's speculating about something called nature, but he has no knowledge of any science of nature. In any case, in the period I've been speaking of shortly again, what Professor Yu was saying, no delimitation between philosophy and theology. No delimitation, and also, which is formal thing. Theology and philosophy as lived philosophy and theology. After all, in a monastic school, one goes to class and goes to church and tries to lead a normal monastic life. In a canonical school, one also tries to lead a philosophical, theological life, and so on. And it seemed to be a good thing. It seemed to be a good thing, but nonetheless, one got more and more to know. And a moment comes in the history of knowledge when the bulk of available knowledge is so large that one needs more than small schools to train students. And therefore, the major event in intellectual history, it's not an event in the history of philosophy, it's not an event in the history of theology, but it's an event in the history of theology and philosophy. It's the creation of something we are so accustomed to that we think it's eternal. It's universities. Sorry, but universities are not eternal. They have not been created the first day. They were created in the late 12th century, after other institutions of learning. The foundation of universities, it's well known, coincides with what is technically called an arrival, or in fact 3 arrivals. The arrivals of Aristotle, called the philosopher, and of Averroes, called the commentator, introduced in the West through translations made in the East, thanks to manuscripts coming from Byzantium, to manuscripts and translations coming from Spanish, from Arab Spanish, and so on, Spain, and so on.